You disgraced this family by marrying that man without permission, and your grandmother agreed completely. You're getting nothing," my father announced at the will reading, his voice carrying the righteous satisfaction of someone delivering punishment he believed was deserved. "She was very disappointed in you. We all were. Your choices have consequences, Vivian." My mother nodded beside him, her expression arranged in careful disapproval, while my siblings Victoria and Marcus sat across the conference table with barely concealed smirks, already calculating how my exclusion would increase their shares. But why did the estate attorney, a man named David Okonkwo who'd served my grandmother for 30 years, wait until my father finished speaking before reaching for a separate envelope, one that had clearly been prepared for exactly this moment? "There's an additional document," David said, his voice professionally neutral. "I've been instructed to read it only if Vivian Patterson is present in the room." My father frowned. "What additional document?" "We've reviewed everything with you. This was held separately, per Mrs. Whitmore's explicit instructions. It's a letter to be read aloud at the will reading, addressed to her granddaughter." He opened the envelope carefully, removed several pages of my grandmother's distinctive handwriting, and began to read. "My dearest Vivian, if this letter is being read, I am gone and you have been told lies about my feelings toward you. I want you to know, clearly and permanently, that everything your parents told you about my disappointment was false. You were never a disgrace. You were always my favorite." The smirks disappeared from my siblings' faces. My mother's careful disapproval cracked into something approaching panic. My father sat frozen, processing words that contradicted the narrative he'd maintained for years. The letter continued for 4 more pages. David read each word with careful precision, giving my grandmother's voice the hearing she'd arranged from beyond the grave. "I watched your parents punish you for following your heart, for choosing love over their approval, for refusing to marry the man they'd selected for their own financial gain. I watched them tell you I supported their cruelty. I watched them use my name to wound you. And I remained silent because speaking up would have exposed secrets they weren't prepared to face." She'd been silent. For 8 years, she'd let me believe she'd rejected me alongside everyone else. But silence, I was learning, wasn't the same as agreement. "I've left the contents of my public estate to be divided among your siblings and parents as they expect. The house, the investments they know about, the accounts they've been monitoring, all of that will go to them." My father relaxed slightly at this confirmation. "However, there are assets your parents never knew existed. A real estate portfolio I built over 40 years, held in a trust they were never informed about. 12 properties across 6 states, including commercial buildings, residential complexes, and undeveloped land with substantial value." David paused, letting the revelation settle. "The current assessed value of this portfolio is $12.7 million. I am leaving it entirely to Vivian, my favorite grandchild and the only one who ever loved me for who I was rather than what I could provide." The silence that followed was absolute. My father's face had gone from satisfied to confused to something approaching purple. My mother looked between David and the letter as if one of them must be lying. Victoria and Marcus were doing rapid mental calculations, trying to understand how $12.7 million had existed without their knowledge. "That's impossible," my father finally managed. "We handled her finances for years. We would have known. The trust was established in 1987, before your involvement with Mrs. Whitmore's financial affairs. It was managed by a separate firm with explicit instructions to maintain complete confidentiality. Your mother was quite clear that you were never to be informed of its existence. Why? Why would she hide money from her own family?" David set down the letter and looked at my father directly. Perhaps she had concerns about how that information would be used. Or misused. The marriage that had disgraced the family had happened 8 years earlier. I'd been 26, established in my career as a pediatric nurse, independent in every way except the emotional chains my family had wrapped around my sense of self-worth. My parents had selected a husband for me, Bradley Harrington, son of their business partners, heir to a real estate development fortune. The merger of families would have been financially advantageous for everyone except me. Bradley was handsome, wealthy, and utterly without warmth. He'd looked at me like an acquisition, a box to be checked on his path to the life his parents had planned. I'd met Daniel at a community health fair, a public school teacher with kind eyes and no family money who listened when I talked and laughed at my jokes and made me feel like a person rather than an asset. When I told my parents I was marrying Daniel instead of Bradley, the response had been swift and brutal. "You're throwing away everything we've built for you," my father had said. "He's a teacher. He'll never provide the life you deserve," my mother had added. "Grandmother agrees with us. She's very disappointed in your choices." That last statement had been the cruelest, because my grandmother had been my anchor. She'd been the one family member who seemed to see me as an individual rather than a chess piece in their financial games. I'd called her, desperate for her voice, for her reassurance. But my parents had already reached her. I think it's best if you don't visit for a while, she'd said, her voice strangely flat. Your parents need time. The rejection had devastated me. I'd married Daniel anyway. A small ceremony with his family and a few friends. No Whitmore relatives in attendance. No congratulations, no gifts, no acknowledgement that the marriage had happened at all. The years that followed had been filled with silence from my family and fullness from my marriage. Daniel and I had built a life together, modest by my parents' standards, but rich in the ways that mattered. 2 children now, both healthy and loved. A small house we'd bought together. Careers that allowed us to help people while maintaining our integrity. I'd grieved my family's absence, but I'd learned to live without them. When my grandmother died, I'd almost not attended the will reading. Why witness the final confirmation that she'd rejected me along with everyone else? But something had pulled me there. Some hope that I couldn't quite extinguish. That hope had just been validated beyond anything I'd imagined. The letter continued with explanations I'd waited 8 years to hear. Your parents threatened me, Vivian. They told me that if I supported your marriage openly, they would cut me off from all my grandchildren, not just you. Victoria's children, Marcus's children, I would never see any of them again. David's voice remained steady, but I could see even he was affected by what he was reading. I was 74 years old and terrified of dying alone, without family around me. So I stayed silent. I let them use my name to hurt you. I let you believe I'd abandoned you. But I never stopped watching. I followed your career through mutual friends. I saw photos of your children through a private investigator I hired. I knew about your marriage, your home, your happiness. And I was proud of you every single day. My mother interrupted the reading. This is ridiculous. She was clearly suffering from dementia when she wrote this. We'll contest, Mrs. Patterson, David said calmly. This letter was written 3 years ago, witnessed by 2 independent parties, and accompanied by a comprehensive competency evaluation from a board-certified psychiatrist. Mrs. Whitmore anticipated that you would attempt to challenge her wishes. She made provisions accordingly. 3 years ago? She's been planning this for 3 years? She was planning this for much longer than that. The trust was established nearly 40 years ago. She simply waited to reveal it until she was certain about who deserved to inherit it. The specific provisions of the trust were detailed and ironclad. I was the sole beneficiary. My children were named as successor beneficiaries. My parents, siblings, and their descendants were explicitly excluded, not just overlooked, but specifically named as having no claim to any portion of the estate. I want to be clear, the letter read in David's steady voice, that this exclusion is deliberate. My son Robert and his wife Helena have spent their lives treating wealth as the measure of human worth. They've raised their other children to believe the same. They punished Vivian for choosing love over money, and they used me as a weapon in that punishment. This inheritance is not revenge. It is correction. The money goes to the person who never wanted it, who never asked for it, who built a meaningful life without it. That is precisely why she deserves it. My father stood abruptly. We're leaving. This is clearly some kind of scam, some manipulation. Mr. Patterson, you're welcome to leave, but I should inform you that there are additional provisions in the trust that affect the remainder of your mother's estate. My father paused. What provisions? Mrs. Whitmore anticipated that you might try to contest Vivian's inheritance. If any legal challenge is filed against the trust, a separate fund of $2 million, currently designated for distribution among your other grandchildren, will be redirected to charity. You would be, in effect, taking money from your own grandchildren to fight a legal battle you cannot win. The calculation played across my father's face. Additionally, any attempt to harass, pressure, or contact Vivian regarding this inheritance triggers an automatic reduction in your share of the public estate. Each contact reduces your inheritance by $100,000, to a maximum of total elimination. She can't do that. She did it. The trust documents are legally binding and have been reviewed by multiple attorneys. Your mother spent considerable resources ensuring that her wishes would be enforced. My mother tried a different approach. Vivian, sweetheart, we're family. Whatever misunderstandings there have been, we can work through them. This money should be shared, not hoarded. Helena, I said, speaking for the first time since the reading began, you spent 8 years telling me I was a disgrace. You told me my grandmother was disappointed in me. You excluded me from family gatherings, refused to meet my children, pretended I didn't exist. We were hurt. You chose a stranger over. I chose my husband. I chose love. And you chose to punish me for it. But now that grandmother's gone, we can start fresh. We can be a family again. You want to be a family now that I have $12.7 million. When I had nothing, you wanted nothing to do with me. That's not fair. It's perfectly fair. It's exactly what you taught me, that money determines worth. I simply learned the lesson you never expected me to apply to you. The letter had one more section, personal words meant only for me. My dearest Vivian, I'm sorry I wasn't brave enough to support you openly. I'm sorry I let them use my silence as a weapon. I'm sorry I never met your children or attended your wedding or told you face to face that I was proud of you. David's voice softened as he read these final paragraphs. But I want you to know that love doesn't always look like public declarations. Sometimes love is secret. Sometimes love is strategic. Sometimes love waits until it can do the most good. Use this money to build the life you deserve. Not the life your parents wanted for you, the life you've already created with Daniel and your children. Expand it. Protect it. Enjoy it. And when your children are old enough, tell them about their great-grandmother. Tell them I loved their mother fiercely, even when I couldn't show it. Tell them that family isn't about blood or money, it's about choosing to love people and proving that love through action. You chose Daniel. You chose love. And that choice proved you were exactly the person I always believed you to be. With all my love, now and forever, Grandmother Eleanor. The room remained silent after David finished reading. My siblings looked at each other with expressions of disbelief and resentment. My parents seemed diminished somehow, their authority undermined by revelations they couldn't dismiss or control. What happens now? Victoria finally asked. Now, the estates are processed according to Mrs. Whitmore's documented wishes. The public estate will be divided among you as previously discussed. The trust will be transferred to Vivian's control within 30 days. And there's no way to challenge any of this? You're welcome to try. But I should warn you, Mrs. Whitmore also left funds specifically designated for Vivian's legal defense, should any challenges arise. Those funds are substantial. And the case law supporting her trust structure is comprehensive. My grandmother had thought of everything. She'd spent years building protections I hadn't known I needed, from threats I hadn't understood I faced. I left the law office alone. My family remained behind, presumably to discuss strategies for reversing what couldn't be reversed, for controlling what they'd lost control of, for maintaining hierarchies that had just been upended. Daniel was waiting for me in the parking lot, leaning against our 10-year-old Honda, worry creasing his face. How bad was it? I started laughing. Then crying. Then something in between. She left me everything, I managed. A secret trust. $12 million. And a letter explaining that she never stopped loving me. Daniel pulled me into his arms. I'm so sorry you had to find out this way. After she was gone. I know. But at least I found out. At least I know the truth now. The truth was more complex than any single letter could convey. In the weeks that followed, David shared additional documentation my grandmother had prepared. A detailed history of how my parents had manipulated her relationships with all her grandchildren. Evidence of financial improprieties they'd committed while managing her known accounts. Records of conversations where they discussed strategies for controlling her estate. My grandmother hadn't just been building a secret inheritance. She'd been documenting a pattern of family dysfunction that stretched back decades. She wanted you to understand, David explained during one of our meetings. Not just that she loved you, but why she couldn't show it. And why she chose to correct the injustice this way. By leaving me money? By leaving you proof. The money is just the vehicle. The real inheritance is the truth, that you were never the disgrace they claimed. That your choices were right. That their punishment of you was wrong. The contact attempts began within weeks of the will reading. My mother, reaching out with sudden warmth she'd never shown before. Vivian, I've been doing a lot of thinking. I was too harsh. Can we talk? My sister Victoria, suddenly interested in sisterly reconnection. I know we've grown apart, but family is family. Maybe we could get the kids together? My brother Marcus, attempting a business angle. I have some investment ideas that could really grow that inheritance. Let me share them with you, just family helping family. Each contact triggered the reduction clause. Each attempt at connection cost them $100,000. They stopped reaching out after the first 4 attempts. $400,000 was apparently the price of their pride. Daniel and I discussed what to do with the inheritance for months. We could move, he suggested. Get a bigger house, better neighborhood. Is that what you want? Not really. I like our house. I like our neighborhood. I like that the kids have friends who don't care about money. Then we keep the house. But the money? The money is security. It's freedom. It doesn't have to change who we are. We established college funds for the children. We paid off the mortgage. We donated to causes my grandmother had supported, education initiatives, childhood literacy programs, scholarships for first-generation college students. The wealth existed, but it didn't define us. That was precisely what my grandmother had predicted. I visited her grave on the first anniversary of her death. The cemetery was quiet, early autumn leaves beginning to turn, the air carrying the particular stillness of places where memory outweighs presence. I wish you'd told me, I said to the headstone. I wish you'd found a way to let me know while you were still here. But I understood, now, why she hadn't. My parents had controlled access to her completely. Any attempt to reach me directly would have been intercepted, punished, used as justification for further isolation. She'd done what she could with the tools she had. She'd waited, planned, documented, and trusted that after she was gone, the truth would find its way to me. The children had started asking about my family. Why don't we see Grandma and Grandpa Whitmore? Emma's grandparents come for every holiday. It's complicated, sweetheart. Sometimes families have disagreements that are hard to fix. But you could try to fix it, right? You always tell us to apologize when we do something wrong. I do. But sometimes the person who did something wrong doesn't want to apologize. And it's not healthy to keep trying with someone who keeps hurting you. Is that what happened? Something like that. But you have great-grandmother Eleanor. She loved you very much, even though she couldn't meet you. And she left you both presents for college. She sounds nice. She was very nice. And very smart. And very good at planning ahead. The final chapter of my grandmother's letter had been personal instructions, not about money, but about memory. Don't let them rewrite history, she'd written. Your parents will try to rehabilitate their image, to claim they were misunderstood, to suggest that our estrangement was somehow your fault. Keep the documentation. Keep the records. Not for revenge, but for clarity. When your children are old enough to ask questions, give them honest answers. And most importantly, live well. Live joyfully. Build the family you deserve to be born into, the family you chose to create. Let your happiness be the final evidence that their values were wrong and yours were right. I've tried to follow her instructions. The documentation exists, stored safely, available if needed but not brandished as a weapon. My children know they have relatives they don't see, but they also know they have a mother who loves them, a father who's present, and a life filled with people who've chosen to be family. Daniel and I celebrated our 10th anniversary last year. A small party with friends and his relatives, people who've supported us from the beginning. No Whitmores in attendance. My grandmother's photo hangs in our living room, not the formal portrait my parents displayed, but a candid shot I found in her personal effects. She's laughing at something off camera, her eyes crinkled with genuine joy. That's how I choose to remember her. Not as the silent figure who seemed to reject me, but as the woman who loved me enough to plan for years. To build protections I didn't know I needed, to ensure that after she was gone, the truth would finally be told. They told me I was a disgrace for marrying without permission. They told me my grandmother agreed with them, that she was disappointed in my choices, that I deserved the punishment of exclusion. For 8 years, I believed them. I built a life without their approval, found happiness without their money, raised children who would never know their grandparents' cruelty. Then the will reading came, and with it, a letter my grandmother had prepared for exactly this moment. Everything they'd told me was a lie. She'd loved me all along. She'd left me $12.7 million they didn't know existed. And she'd spent years ensuring that her real feelings would be revealed only when it was too late for them to prevent it. The money was significant. The truth was priceless. I was always her favorite. And now the whole family knows it.